Welcome back to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13, powered by Tata Tele Business Services. You're watching highlights from our recently concluded Kolkata Springboard. In this segment, we unpack how SMEs can scale in the digital economy while managing risk, cost, and technology adoption. In conversation with Vishal Rally, Chief Revenue Officer, Tata Tele Services. I just want to begin the conversation by talking about, the region a little bit. Now, Eastern India, it is known to produce some strong enterprises. And I think the growth is visible right now a lot more because markets are connected across India, globally. So my first question to you, from a CRO's perspective, how is it different for SMEs today?
I think the business landscape across entire of the East is going through a transformation, right? Initially, if you'd seen largely it is heavy industries and minerals led. Yeah. Now it's, we are seeing it's becoming a logistics hub. Integrated, industrial clusters are emerging, specialized manufacturing and digital transformation as well. Now, West Bengal continues to be the IT and services hub for Eastern region. As was presented earlier, around $220, $230 billion. By the way, that's the sixth largest in India as far as state economy is concerned. I think many people don't realize this. Yes. It's the sixth largest. And over the last decade or so, it's actually doubled. So $220 billion is a 2x what it was a year back, a little over 2x actually. And the next 10 years, it's expected to grow 5x to become a $1 trillion state economy. Right? So it's a big jump that's going to happen. Yeah. And for West Bengal to reach there, MSMEs are going to contribute significantly onto this. Now, where is the growth coming from? Where is the growth going to come from in the coming 5-10 years for West Bengal? Essentially, the IT services hub, and frankly, I think we are sitting right in the middle of the Silicon Valley of Bengal. This is what it is, right? The new town. And GCCs, already about 40 GCCs are already out here, and expected again to grow 3x to become about 150 or so in next 4 to 5 years, which is the services play. It's becoming increasingly the key logistics hub on the services side again, and specialized manufacturing, whether it's chemicals, green energy, semiconductors, all of this is going to totally kind of take that economy ahead. And MSMEs are going to be very, very critical in terms of powering these. They will be the service provider suppliers to GCCs. They will be the service provider or suppliers for manufacturing. And also, they are the one who's going to drive that logistics hub around here. And for MSMEs to succeed, I think technology is going to be that key enabler for MSMEs to kind of add to that, to the overall economy of West Bengal.
But Vishal, when I speak to a lot of MSMEs as well, I think they realize that technology adoption is critical, but they are somewhat hesitant about it. They are somewhat hesitant about digital adoption as well because they fear compliance, rising costs. If I were to ask you, if you could perhaps advise SME leaders, some simple steps, they can take when it comes to digital adoption without feeling like overwhelmed.
Every business has to realize that technology is going to help you in terms of value creation, in terms of increasing your operating efficiencies, and also in terms of getting the customer intimacy going, right? So again, whenever I, meet up with SME owners, SME business owners, I keep telling them in the conversation saying, it's not a question of going digital means expensive or is going to be complicated. I think it's important from the perspective to say, technology not just for the sake of technology. There's no point in buying the best technology. That makes sense. It's just that what is it that technology is going to do for you, right? And essentially, an SME business owner should first and foremost look at the business, create a roadmap, keep their customers at the center of everything they do, and then partner with a tech service provider, kind of help them in terms of understanding the business context, and then guide them in terms of what technology makes the most sense at that point in their business journey, right? And probably I'll take an example so that people get to understand this better. So typically, SME customers buy technology in bits and pieces. They don't look at the whole picture. So one of our consumer services company SME customer, and they bought WhatsApp for business, they bought some phone lines, and in their customer interactions, it was all disparate, right? So at peak times, you will miss out on customer calls. When customer is communicating, their own end customer is communicating with them, they would miss out on WhatsApp messages. They were aligned to individual mobile phones, so so it's a very, in the sense, not only you're losing the business, but the outlook that you're giving to your own customer base or prospect customers is saying they don't seem like very customer friendly, right? So the idea was to bring everything together as one customer interaction suite, which is again hosted on the cloud. All forms of communication, bringing it together. So whether it's voice, SMS, text, email, chat, WhatsApp comes in together. One particular portfolio on a platform, all conversations come in there, gets all the, in terms of productivity level of all the people can be measured. There is no communication loss, and you are actually giving that view to your prospect customers or existing customers saying, I am a professional organization and I care about my customers. And this particular solution, which we call SmartFlow, it's an integrated cloud communication suite, gave them that professional look, and the SME owner and their team could focus on their core business and let the technology be managed by us.
Speaking of cloud, for the longest time, businesses viewed cloud as a storage place to, just store data, perhaps. But what would your advice be for, SME leaders in terms of how they can leverage cloud as a strategic capability instead?
Yeah, I think conversations about cloud have, moved from, say, back office or basement moving to the cloud, which is saying, okay, I need more space. Let's push this out there, do some cost savings and so on and so forth. Now those conversations have really become showroom conversation, which is right up front, which is saying cloud as a key business enabler. Essentially, I genuinely believe cloud is one of those technologies which is allowing SMEs to compete with the best out there, any size, large enterprises across the globe. Again, because inherently cloud works as an OpEx model, pay as you grow, elastic, all of that is what helps SMBs to leverage the best out of the cloud. Again, possibly giving an example out here and not going into too much on technology on the cloud side. One of our manufacturing customers, they have a single factory, and they have multiple offices, multiple locations, warehouses, and so on and so forth. And everything, all the servers, all the internet bandwidth, all locations connectivity was linked to this factory. So single point of failure, anything goes down there, the entire organization is cut off. Yeah. And what we did was we took all of the workloads to public cloud. So there was a DC and a DR, so you built redundancy. We deployed an SD-WAN solution in all the branches across, and complete visibility to, say, the IT manager and IT lead across all the locations was available to them centrally, still out there. So they had the control and the visibility still managed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of security, tell me today, why should enterprises stop looking at security as just an IT issue, but instead look at it as a core business requirement?
I think you've touched upon the biggest blind spot that's there, and specifically for MSMEs. It's a biggest myth that we are too small for somebody to, cyber attack us, kind of stuff. Fact is, just last year, which is 2025, there are like 1.5 million cyber attacks in India, and the attacks on SMEs have grown by 60%. And see, it's not just that a cyber attack happens, so again, loss of revenue and all that, your business will suffer for maybe a week, few weeks, month, maybe longer. But it's the trust, right? The trust that your organization has taken years and years painstakingly to build with your customers gets lost, right? So again, I don't think there's an issue of intent out here from MSME perspective. The issue essentially is they don't know where to start. It's too complex, right? The security space is too fragmented, too many providers, how to choose, what to choose, who to work with, kind of stuff, right? And I think we also understand, at Tata Tele Business Services, we understand that it's difficult for customers to have their own security specialists. And that's why we have kind of designed a stack around holistic cybersecurity solutions, so that when we engage with them, we suggest the right products and solutions to choose for their requirements.
Vishal, no conversation is complete today without touching on AI, because AI has become a boardroom conversation. It's impacting every function, every aspect of organizations. But for SMEs, who want to balance ambition with financial prudence, AI adoption, technology adoption, it needs to lead and translate into tangible outcomes as well.
Yeah.
How should founders, how should SME leaders, look at AI realistically in this context?
Yeah, again, I think a lot of SMEs think AI is not for us, right? This is for large enterprises, and they'll have their data lakes, and they will have their LLMs and SLMs, and they'll figure out things for themselves. But again, it's a myth, right? So we work with a lot of SME customers where there is cloud-based, OpenAI-based AI models that are available where they can leverage the power of the AI. And just like cloud, I believe AI is the technology which if SMEs really adopt right in the early stages, I think they will go ahead of the curve versus SMEs who do nothing around AI, right? So again, see, AI has now moved beyond a digital answering machine. You ask something, it'll answer. To move to digital intelligence, which you can really use to enhance your business. It's no longer, menu driven, okay, you ask 1, 2, 3, and it'll answer A, B, C, and so on and so forth. But it's gone contextual, intent-based conversations, whether it's generative or agentic, and so on, right? And I think it's important to understand with probably a simple example, which comes to my mind, a recent deployment that we have done for a media tech small company, so that I think it should open up, kind of everybody's, all SMEs to open up their brains saying, okay, this is possible, this is for me. Now, this company does work on movies for visually impaired. Okay, let's just understand a little bit. How does it work? You can watch, but you can listen, right? So when the actors are speaking, you can hear their voices and you kind of figure things out. Don't get awed by the technology of AI. If you have a problem there is potentially a solution is available from AI, and you don't need to spend, like we said, India should develop an LLM model like abroad. We don't need trillion parameters. Billion parameters is enough for us, for our LLM. So similarly, for an SME, you don't need, huge data lakes and looking at your LLMs, SLMs. There are solutions available, like I gave that example earlier.
So tell me, how can managed services help lean teams scale, without losing control?
Yeah, see, as the business scales, you deploy various technologies. And what happens is the internal teams then spend a lot of time in managing tech ops, which is like, managing servers, you're managing connectivity issues if there are, you're managing security, alerts, all of that stuff. Whereas what you want your digital and technology team is to be working on innovation and supporting the business growth. And I think what managed services typically does is it takes away that, that ops part of the grunt work, onto a specialized partner.
Well, this was a very good conversation, but before I let you go, one last question. One piece of advice for all the entrepreneurs watching the show today, for all the small business owners as well, in terms of how they can scale strategically in this new digital era that we are living in today.
Yeah, and again, my messaging for SMEs, see, MSMEs are typically a backbone for any country's economy. Yeah. When not just India, any country. When we looked at developed markets, the contribution of MSMEs to their country's GDP is 50 to 55%. We are at 30%. You heard earlier, West Bengal 29%. India is on an average 30%. So there's huge headroom, right? And frankly, if India has to grow, all of us have to, looking at that next 5, 10 years to say we want to become a $10 trillion, $20 trillion, $30 trillion economy. That ain't happening if MSME's contribution does not grow, right? So it's extremely important for MSMEs to really come out and play that game now.
Fantastic, Vishal. Thank you so much for your time. This was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13, powered by Tata Tele Business Services. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.